wait for it to do its thing. Okay, we're live, people. So welcome on to StreamYard. Hopefully you are all listening in Facebook and YouTube or YouTube. I can't tell, so I have runners on those social streams to keep what's going on. So welcome back, Maria, Alison, Sunny, Jill, and Lynn. And I sent them questions that I thought we would look at. And in order to clear up the in-joke of pivoting, I just sent out this question saying, what does pivoting really mean? And a couple of people went, what's pivoting?
Especially if you spelt it wrong.
Context, completely. Whenever I think of pivoting, I'll be really honest, I just keep thinking we'll just swivel because I can't pivot anymore. So I'm going to now ask you one by one, and let's discuss, what does pivoting really mean to you? Who would like to start? Sunny.
I'm happy to if Sunny doesn't want to.
No, I'm fine. To me, pivoting means using your existing skills to reach out to a new audience, or using your existing business to reach out to a new audience. It's about using the skill set you have or stuff that you have to actually gain more turnover, more share of voice. But it's quite a lot about using your initiative, but actually making the most of what you have.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Lynn.
So I was one of the ones that had never heard of it before, especially if you spelt it wrong anyway. But anyway, but it's a new phrase for me, but I love it because we've got to be aware we're living in changing times. Clearly, things are vastly different to they were even this time last year, vastly different, and they're going to be even more different as we continue with the way we work, the way we live, the way we spend. So pivoting, the words I would have previously used is being smart, being flexible, and seeing how we can take our existing businesses and turn them into something that works in this new current time. And as a retailer and in the hospitality industry, as well as with my online women's club and support team, I realized in the last lockdown that everything had to go online other than the hospitality. And I would just have to be a lot smarter and a lot cleverer. So it's always good to have a challenge. And that's what I now will call pivoting. Thank you.
You have been doing it most of your career, Lynn, actually.
I used to call it intuition, like, what do you do next? And then, next catches up with you. So, yeah, it's an intuitive way of working, I guess.
Jill, what about you?
Well, I've cheated and I've Googled it since we're having this conversation. So shall I tell you what it says in Google? What does pivoting mean in business? It means shifting to a new strategy, often believed to entail drastically changing the whole company, focusing on a different set of customers by positioning a company into a new market or vertical.
Oh, that sounds posh.
Yeah, I thought so. So, well, for me, I think, like Lynn, my business was completely face-to-face. We're talking events. I felt the energy was having women together in the room, because that worked really, really well. And then they took that opportunity away, this virus. So we had to, as everybody says, pivot online. But now I think my plans for next year is very much about, well, we've been forced into the online scenario. And a number of us have gone, actually, I quite like this. I do quite like this. I think this gives us an amazing opportunity. It gives us the opportunity to access many, many more people more globally than we would normally with, my network groups in the Southwest. And so I think it's like I was saying earlier, it's another opportunity that we need to grab, even in challenging times, and start to do something differently. And I think we're all doing that, aren't we? We're all doing things differently than we were 6-7 months ago when we were all stood on that stage down in Dorset.
It's true. Very true. Maria, what does it mean to, and let's face it, the speaking industry, there wasn't a lot left when they finally locked us down.
Well, actually, I disagree. So first of all, I hate the word pivot. So all of the words that Lynn's used, I'd rather use any of those. The word is just ugly. It just I hate the word unprecedented. I hate the word pandemic. There's a lot of words I really hate at the moment. But yes, so for me, everything's changed and nothing has changed. If you are offering solutions and solving problems and helping businesses, nothing's changed. You're still doing that. If you were speaking on stages, that's what's changed. So all that's changed is how you deliver it and how you package it. Business is still going on. And yes, there are industries that are in trouble, but they're still wanting help and support in some way. And they want to, I love this virtual world. I have got all the gear, no idea. I've got lights, I've got cameras, I've got microphones, I'm loving playing with toys. It's such fun. I'm creating silly videos. I think it's great. I always wanted to be a broadcaster secretly, I think. I didn't know this until I started doing it online. And now I'm a broadcaster. It's great.
There's always a great golden cloud there. Alison.
So I know that one of the words that Maria does like is futurist. And it's interesting that I think if you look, I created, and I had to pinch myself, and it's sometimes like things come up on your timeline, but I actually created my online courses in 2015. So now where people are pivoting and they're trying to do things differently, they're scrambling around doing their online courses from the back bedroom with their knickers behind them. Mine were all professionally shot, and I've sold like so many courses because, again, what I did with the courses in 2015, I wholesaled them into business support organizations. So instead of selling like one copy at on Udemy, they're 10 quid. I sold something like 10 grand's worth to one client. So again, we could never have foreseen what was going to happen. Even the crystal ball and the futurists could never have seen some of them did see the pandemic. I've seen the TEDx by Bill Gates. So, but I think it's future-proofing yourself. So I think the smart businesses made those changes earlier. And I think, I've got one of my clients who's the person that named me the entrepreneur's godmother. So he is the naughtiest boy in the world, and he makes gin, right? He makes gin, and I love him. And he started to turn his distillery into hand sanitizer right early doors when there was none left. So that, to me, is that pivot, and it's been fast, it's been agile, it's looking for the next gap. So again, I think it's about being entrepreneurial. So people who are now, the online courses are getting saturated. So what's the next thing? That's where we really start to be proactive, I think, in business.
I think listening to you all, we're really talking about flexibility. And because I've spoken to a few women who have said, does that mean I have to do a completely different business because the one I've got doesn't work? And for me, that was never the case. It is about flexibility, isn't it? It's about finding an ingenious answer to something. And actually, as women, we are very good at finding ingenious answers to the mum, I need a pantomime costume tomorrow and I've got to be a donkey. Oh, okay. We're very good at that. And I think we need to remind ourselves. So do you all think that is about flexibility, ingenuity and resilience?
I think the key word is flexibility. I think if you can be flexible within your businesses, it doesn't matter if you're looking for a new audience to reach out to, or actually you're flexible with your product and use your existing audience. You've already got that audience base there. If your current product isn't selling due to a pandemic, due to lockdown, due to price points, think about what will sell. That's what we did with Perfect Dress Company. We wanted to offer women smaller luxuries that they still make them feel great, which is why we launched the jewelry line. And with Sunny Bird PR, when, I've been quite open this morning, we lost 80% of our clients within the first 2 months of lockdown. So we actually ended up launching a new product for a whole new audience called our Reaching Millions Board. And it was a more affordable way of having PR in your organization. Where are we now? We're like 7 months on, and we're back to the turnover we were in March. And that's just by launching a new product at a different price point to a whole new audience.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm going to chuck a bit of a thing in the middle here, because I can almost hear a lot of women in small business going, Well, that's easy for you to say, Sunny, because you're really good at it. So that's easy for you. Is it easy? I just that's a straight question. Is it easy?
I don't think it's easy. Like I really did not cope the first month of lockdown. I don't think it was easy. But once I did take the time to look at the assets that we had, we know PR, let's deliver it a different way at an affordable price for people who are really struggling in lockdown. It's using the assets you've got, either your knowledge or your assets as the audience that you've already created. So I don't think it's easy. I think it's taking the time to look at the assets within your business that you can then reutilize.
Yeah. What about everyone else on that one?
I mean, I think it's definitely, we talked about mindset this morning, and I think, again, at the start of lockdown, we did have to do things differently. Like Maria knows, like all the things, like every word Maria says, I hang on it because I think, I'm going to do that. I'm easy to work with. I stand out. I do that. I'm watching every single word because I've been spending, literally stalking Maria for years. Because I want to be in the 1% of speakers in the world, not just the 1% of women.
Stalking, that's what you're doing.
But you look at that, and again, I was just kind of getting somewhere. I'd secured the European Commission. It was a massive fee. It would have been a big game changer to open the doors for more work. And again, you can think to yourself, right, oh, this is rubbish, or this is somebody else's fault. You can't blame it. You've got to just do things differently. And that's where, we had virtually no revenue coming in because all the speaking stuff that I've spent so many years wanting to do wasn't there. I had to so I did the webinars. So I'd always been quite au fait using Zoom and all the stuff. And when everybody was giving away stuff for free, so everybody, do my webinar, this is free, I went, no, I'm not doing anything for free. And I did, a bit like Sunny said, I did low cost, high volume. And what that did was every single ticket went towards paying the wages because I didn't furlough the team, because I didn't feel it was good for the structure and mental health. So literally all we do is try and get people on the webinars, 15 quid a ticket, and it pays it. But is that what I really want to be doing? No. But is that getting me through to keep my business afloat, to keep my staff employed, to keep people positive? Yes, it is. And I think, it's the people that don't, they harbour on the fact, oh dear, I can't get speaking gigs live in the European Commission, that will not get through this because they haven't got the right mindset towards it. And again, people don't forget, there's a short memory. The people who are out here now doing it will be remembered, as Maria said earlier, by the bureaus, by the companies. So again, that positive and messaging as well, I think it's just so crucial at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's move on to the next question, people. So, how can we look more to visionary leadership in the coming years and create change in the way things are done? Visionary leadership, because it is all changing. The world has changed. We have to make things different. And Lynn, you talk about this new way of working. You've been doing it for a long time. So how do you see this new visionary leadership? I had to look that one up as well, actually, because I couldn't really figure out.
Where'd you get these questions from? Anyway, visionary leadership. I'm blaming Jill myself. Okay, so visionary leadership. Well, we're all leaders. That's what I teach when I'm doing my workshops and my work, my mentoring and coaching is we are all leaders. We all have that potential. And we talked earlier on today when Maria's talk about self-confidence with women. And that's that inner core, which we find as women so difficult to really get in touch with. Now, visionary leadership is to constantly being aware and awake that things do not stay the same. And we are going forward in a different way. And it, as I said just a few minutes ago, will not be the same. And I believe that women particularly can take this leadership role in this visionary way of looking at economy, looking at localization, how we eat, how we shop, how we communicate, how we connect. And most of that will be done with a lot of, well, all of it actually, with a lot of collaboration between ourselves. I mean, I am constantly looking at the vision of the future. Being a futurist is very much part of what I do, and it's what I've done. It's the one thing I would say for the last 40 years that has been consistent, is this awareness I have of what's coming next. And sometimes I'm a bit too early with that. This time the world and life has caught up with me, and it really is necessary to know what's coming next. Consumer patterns, how we want to work. Being aware also of the negative things that are going on in the world, that we are aware of the amount of people that will be out of work, the amount of people that are being affected with mental health issues, that we can't live in a bubble of everything's lovely. We've just got to be aware of all aspects of the world and how we can create change within that. So visionary leadership for me comes from the bottom up. It comes from a real heart perspective. It's not all about the mind. How can I get bigger? How can I earn more money? How can I be more powerful? Because for me, that's the old paradigm. We can still be successful. We can still earn money. We can still live a life that we want, but it has to come from a much more holistic place, because what's the point of everybody thinking I'm going to make more money? Meanwhile, the environment we know is getting destroyed. There are ways of doing green businesses, which is in a much more kind of interesting, friendly way. There are win-wins for all businesses to help the people they're serving, help all the stakeholders in those businesses, and still make a profit. There are so many ways of doing things. And because we've been so stuck, in my opinion, in the old paradigm and the old way of the old systems, it has just not moved on, which is what I was talking about before. And if we even look at the American elections and the very old system, they have a voting there, and look what a mess that's got in. You know, we can see that in any situation, whether it's business, politics, education, agriculture, whatever it is, there are new, smarter ways of doing things where we can learn. For me, even at this point in my life, I've been working for 50 years, I guess, and yet I'm always looking to learn, looking to grow, listening to new ideas, reading books, listening. I mean, there are so many amazing webinars online at the moment for free, where we can just plug in anywhere in the world and hear some really extraordinary ideas and concepts that are happening that don't just stick in the business frame, but are outside the business frame and bring it all together. So for me, visionary leadership is about a very holistic way of looking things, a way of holding up the generations to come. So it's not linear as it has been. So you have the chair and the CEO and the board of directors all going down. It is actually coming up from the bottom and holding everyone else and encouraging everybody you're working with, everybody you're connecting with, to move into their leadership role. That has to be the future, to get rid of the competition, the competitive side of things, and to come to a place of collaboration. That's the future. Whether you're in a big corporation, whether you're in a small individual entrepreneurial business, whatever it may be. And I believe that is a soft power, and I call it feminine leadership, but actually it's just as applicable for men and for women as we go forward in the future.
Absolutely. And I know you, Sunny, and I think you, Alison, do run your teams like that. I know certainly Sunny does, because I've been down there and seen the way she works with her teams, that it is that, supporting them and their growth as much as your business.
Yeah, I mean, so to me, one of the things, my topics that I talk about is entrepreneurship. So to get employees to think like entrepreneurs, what would I do with my business, about sustainability, about time management, about overall. And I think it's been quite interesting, because every single person in the room has experienced working with Rebecca, and we work really closely together, and like literally being a good leader and having a good team allows you to have this headspace to look at different models, to be visionary. I mean, so one of the things at the moment is there is a lack of good salespeople out there, and I'm a big firm believer in young talent. I love working with young people. So we've applied to take on the Kickstarter program, but to take on 40 Kickstarters around the country. And what I'll do is I'll train them on sales and get them just to attend networking events, to give them that confidence to be able to, integrate and move in. So they work with me for 6 months and they'll move into a sales platform to really take their careers further. But what we have got, and again, I think it feeds into the stuff with the tech, you know, it's really important that technology will be one of the things that does drive us forward. And it's an early adopter and ahead of the game. So another one of my young entrepreneurs is a young boy. I've been working with him since he's been 15 years old. He's now 21. His name's Ben Towers. And when he was 18, he did a multi-million-pound merger of his business. And he's created an app called Tahora. And this is like a community app. So we would have called it in old money, a bit like an intranet. So like you can have all your community functions and all your integration within your, you know, like healthcare, mental health, you know, so really, really ahead of that. So we're going to integrate that into the program so that we not only then can work with them in a business perspective, but in a 360 holistic. And I think, you know, that's brilliant for Ben that we bring it in for us. It's brilliant for the young people because they get to work with us. It's brilliant for Rebecca because she moves into senior leadership. It's brilliant for Jazz, who comes in and works directly under Rebecca. So I think Visionary is about thinking about the technology that's out there to support it. But again, being an early adopter, you know, where most people would take on one Kickstarter to do admin or whatever, I'm like, no, I'm going to take on a load of them and then get them out there so that I can springboard them into sales apprenticeships or sales roles.
That is actually quite amazing, that amount of young people in the Kickstarter program, 40. Yeah, that would scare me silly, actually.
But the only reason I can do that, Bev, is I've got a good team. You know, like the whole way through organising this event, it wasn't me that organised the event, it was Rebecca. Like she just tells me where I have to be, do what I have to do, and then I'm allowed to, again, do the things that I'm really strong at. And I think that's where visionary leadership comes in.
Yeah. Did you want to jump in there, Sunny?
I think that comes. I was thinking about what Lynn said, as well as you, Alison. But it's working not in your business. It's like working on your business. By having a team, we have time to do that. We have time to look at the bigger picture, look at where we want our organisations to go. But I agree with Lynn. It only works if your team are completely on board from the bottom all the way up, and they need to understand where your aims, your missions are, your visions are. And I think that's super important. And it comes with everything you do, from setting aims, targets, where you see your business going. I think they have to know from the beginning, and things do change. Like, as we said, no one knew that we were going to have COVID, and it's making sure that we along our journey make sure we keep like clear communications with our teams that things can change, and that's okay, but this is the path that we're going on now. So I think I'm completely agree with you, Lynn. Like, your team from your business the whole way down have to understand where you want to take things for it to really, really work.
Jill?
I mean, I agree, obviously, with everything that's said. I think it's worth mentioning for lots of people who don't have teams that one thing that we are really good at as women, if we let ourselves, is asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that's about the tech, so Maria's going to tell me how I can sort out my presentation behind my Zoom for my award ceremony, but you know, women are really, we are so good at supporting each other. We're not always terribly good about asking for help, but that's how we can get help. So if you haven't got a team, there will always be, and I'm not talking about taking advantage of people, but, you know, I'm doing the award ceremony, and not all of the people that are in my tribe have said, there's anything you want us to do, let us know. And I know they mean that. And I've got a responsibility to say, actually, yes. Can you do this? Could you help me with that? And then we can do the most amazing things with the support of the people around us. And everybody loves to help other people, don't they? So I think you can still embrace all this, but with the support of other women.
I think that's really important. Your group, like the super group, for instance, Jill, every business doesn't start off having a team. I never started off my business with, 15 staff. I started off on my own in a bedroom, pretty lonely and miserable. But if it wasn't for the fact that I surrounded myself with other women who were in a similar situation with me, who I could ask and get their support, I wouldn't be where I am now. So as much as businesses are in different places at different levels, I think surrounding yourself with people who have the same interests as you, the same visions as you, is just as important as starting with your team from the ground upwards.
Yeah. Can I just add to that, Sammy, that it's also about the same values, isn't it?
Yeah.
Surrounding yourself with people, whether they be collaborators or they're in your team, but it's actually the same values. that take us to this next stage. And we hold that as part of our vision.
Yeah. Is this a topic that gets spoken about much, Maria? This sort of visionary
Leadership. Absolutely huge. Yes, always has been, always will be. And it's interesting because you're asking about visionary leadership. What strikes me is that there's not a lot of it around. Let me say one name that someone I've been watching who I think is phenomenal in this space, and that's Jacinda Ardern, Prime Minister of New Zealand. I think she's shown the world, even with a babe in arms, how it should be done. And how has she done that? She's communicated regularly and communicated on the right level. She's been approachable. She's taken tough decisions early on. She hasn't messed about. And let's look at what's going on over there. Okay, you can't compare like with like. You can't compare because we're comparing apples and pears. But if we look at some of the other leaders that we have, there's been a total lack of visionary leadership, a total lack of taking responsibility. And there's been, I mean, I won't name names, but some leaders have been blaming instead of taking responsibility and saying, what are we going to do? How are we going to do forward? And there's another lady, and I'm sorry, I don't have her name, and I probably should have Googled it beforehand. When we were waiting here in the UK, because I'm assuming we've also got international people watching this. Of course they have. They're saying, look at these women I'm going to be watching, even though it's by my bedtime, I'm going to be tuning in, of course. When we were waiting for Boris to get his act together on Sunday and tell us what was going on, we knew what he was going to say. I suspect there were some arguments about whether they're going to carry on furlough or not, and this has now come through now. But anyway, let's not go there. There was a really interesting, amazing female doctor. I think she's with the University of Edinburgh, who just said it exactly as it was. She stripped it all back and she said, this is what we should be doing. And I thought, do you know what? Please listen to this woman, because she's saying exactly what's going on and she's telling us what we should be doing. So there are some amazing visionary leaders out there. I think we need to give them much more voice. And I think there's some really, sadly, some really bad leadership out there. What's wonderful to see, and it's like, as Lynn is saying, it's the feminine leadership. It does seem to be the women. So let's just let the whole world be managed by the girls. Let's just let that happen. And I'm looking forward to that. I probably are going to upset a lot of speakers that I work with, but hic false.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Maria, what was funny about that lady it's when she said, I don't want to be wasting my time here on the BBC saying this again in another few months. And then the presenter picked her up and said, oh, you're wasting your time on the BBC. She went, oh, I didn't mean it like that. That was quite funny.
Yeah, and it's a good point, because she's predicting that if we don't change what we're doing, if we keep doing what we're doing, we will be back in lockdown in February. And I think she's absolutely right. And she's saying that these are the things we need to be addressing. And she was giving us all the answers. And I just wish the leaders would listen to people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Or at the very least, take time to listen and sort of think about what people are saying, rather than just dismiss out of hand without any thought. And one of the things I wanted to say was, because, I have thrown some words in there like pivot and visionary and disruptors and influencers and all of that. But actually, do you think when you look at it, it's just mostly common sense? You know, if things don't work the way they've always worked, do it differently. Is that not a disruptor?
There is no such thing as common sense. Common sense is totally uncommon.
Okay.
It's really sad. There's not a lot of it about. I mean, if you think about common sense, we would not be seeing some of the ridiculous stuff that we are seeing going on in the world. It's like I think there's common madnesses going on. I don't know what's happening, but it's like, you want to shake some people and say, what are you doing? Why are you, when the pub's shut, partying as if we're not in a pandemic? What are you doing? What are you thinking? Look at these numbers. We lost a relative very early on. Mm-hmm. And as soon as that happened, it hit home, and it was like, hang on, I don't want to lose any more relatives. Yeah. And until it hits you personally, you're not going to take this seriously, and you're going to behave like idiots. And, these people who wear masks and they have their noses outside of the mask, do you know why they do that? I know why they do that. Because they have bad breath and they don't want to smell it. Sorry, don't get me on this.
I think we should move on because we've all got different views on this.
We're entering a whole political thing. We're going to get started.
I mean, if we look at the lack of common sense, and I don't mean in ordinary people, because I think most people are really trying their best, whichever way they're going about it. For me, lack of common sense is actually what's happening in leadership. And we go back to the leadership conversation. And we are seeing, in my opinion, a system that is breaking down. A series of systems that are breaking down, and they will not go back. And I talked earlier today, for those of you who were there, about the circular economy, which is a very different way of doing things. And I see that in every area of new systems. I think that circular systems is what we're going to be seeing develop. And that has been kind of around the sort of very low key, but has been bubbling around for a few years now. And now I think we're going to see these circular systems of communication, the localization I talked about also earlier, how we're going to be working in communities, making changes in our direct neighborhoods, and how we can then share that information with other neighborhoods. I think there's going to be far more generosity of spirit as we go forward. There's going to be a kinder society. I think we're going to be much more caring in the natural caring way we have, which again is feminine, but of course there's lots of wonderful men also, but it is led by the women. What can we do to help our neighbours? We are going to have people in severe crisis. We've already seen what's happened with the children not getting their meals during the holidays, and how many neighborhoods, all neighborhoods that I know of, immediately came together to say, let's feed these children, and businesses, let's feed these children, let's make sure that no one goes hungry. So we're going to, in my opinion, we're going to see a lot more of that, and that is all good.
That is wonderful. Wonderful. Love that.
Many years in the community sector, and I worked in some very deprived neighborhoods and very dysfunctional families and things. And I can tell you now, the people that were the most neighbourly, the people that cared most what went around within their communities, were those communities that have been written off.
Yeah.
And they would come together, they would volunteer, they would work, they would support each other. And I'm really keen, from a personal point of view, to say we need to find a way to take that caring that happens locally and try to get it seen as a great way of working nationally and globally.
Yes, and we can do it, and we can do it together. That's what we're going to do, Bev.
That's what we do. Which is why I joined the Seed Hub group.
Exactly, the Seed Hub Club. And whatever group you're in, and thank you for joining the Seed Hub Club. I mean, we can all do it together, whether it's Swib, whether it's me, whether it's Alison's people. I mean, Maria's got enormous, fantastic influence in so many ways. Sunny's a brilliant PR. Jill, I mean, I have such respect for you. We can all do this together, and there's others between us all. Think of how many other people we know. That's my vision. My vision is we come together and we share, and we can still make a living and be smart and be clever, but we've all got such skills, such experience, such gifts, such wisdom, and we are the wisdom. We are the wise women. That's how I feel it. We're the wise women, and we take that wisdom and we open up and open our arms out to all the others out there and say, time to do it together, really time to do it together.
It's time actually to take that word competition off the table, isn't it? Because one of the for me, the successes of Successful Women in Business was that Jill opened it up to any industry. So we could have 2 or 3 of the same industry. We were never in competition. We were there to support and collaborate. And when I talk about people's messages, that's your why, and that's what makes you unique to anybody else. So I remember doing a training session with, I think, 15 Avon ladies. And the first question is, what do you do? I'm an Avon lady. I'm an Avon lady. I'm an Avon lady. By the end of that, I had 15 completely different businesses that used Avon to achieve what these ladies wanted to achieve. So let's take the word competition off the table.
But
the hashtag to use, Bev, is collaboration over competition. That's my favourite, after women supporting women.
Oh, right, okay.
That reinforces that we are collaborating, and that's more important than competing. And you've got that example here with all of us.
Yeah.
But I would say that to do that collaboration, not again with women, but if you look at industry, so for example, again, the statistics that apply to the speaking are still the same in sales training. So, like, I've got some really stiff competition, if you want to. Morris, Avenue, there are these amazing sales speakers that have been speaking for absolutely years, and a lot of people would be frightened to give them their knowledge. Does that make sense? But one of the things, Tony Morris is a younger, probably in his 40s sales speaker, and he's really good. Like, he's been at the top of his game for a long time, and he put together a mastermind. So it's myself, Tony, Chris Murray, Andy Edwards. So again, real players at the top of their game. And again,
are you the only woman?
I'm the only woman, so
okay. Hello, Alison. Welcome to our world.
But I think again, when Jill made her points earlier about the police force, like, I come from hospitality and I come from sales, and honestly, in those two industries, it does not matter what's between your legs. Nobody cares what's between your legs. If you can hit your sales target, crack on. So. I think in that industry, it's really interesting that a lot of people would be scared to go into a mastermind group with the people who are their competition. But we share our knowledge really well. And, for example, Tony and I did the keynote speakers at the Thomas Cook conference, the OMG conference, and like getting each other in, even though we're talking about the same topic. But you have to be bold and brave to go into that with your competitors, because a lot of people would be too scared in case they stole your customers. So I think that's that collaboration with people in your industry is, you've got to be quite bold to go in, because most people would shy away in case you gave too much knowledge or too much about your competitors and they stole the business.
Yeah, that happens. I'm going to move on to the third question, which actually Maria sent to me earlier and did allude to. See, look at my lovely vocabulary coming out, people. Allude to during her talk around. There was a press release came out around how COVID is actually helping women more so because they're at home. So they don't, they can work at home and the children are at home and things like that. So I suppose the question to all of you is what are the benefits? And I'm going to apologise to everybody who has seen the bad side of it, because it is not something we want. It is not something we would ask for. But what are the benefits of us being at home? All right, let's talk about lockdown. What are the benefits for women in small business about this lockdown? Any ideas?
Well, I struggle with that because I talk about the disproportionate impact this pandemic has had on women, because, let's start with a negative and finish on a positive. I'll think of one by then. And that's across the world. I did a podcast yesterday with the head of fundraising for the Microloan Foundation, and they're supporting women in sub-Saharan Africa. And Lynn's got this level of expertise, so she knows this. So that, it's all across the world. It's not just here. But I think certainly at the start, the challenges were around homeschooling. I had a member with 4 children under 10 and caring responsibilities and a business, and you can guess which one gave way by the end of that lockdown, because she just couldn't do it, and she's pushing herself into the ground trying to do that. So I think there has been a real disproportionate. I put something out this morning. Let's get lots of exercise, quite right, in this next month. It's dark now, so if you're going for a run as a woman, that's a bit of a challenge. Yeah. So there's all sorts of different areas, but I think if you grasp the opportunity, and if you are at home, there's a lot more efficiency in terms of your time. Unfortunately, as much as I loved and still loved having one-to-ones with women and having coffee and cake, I can get so many more done in my day and still do my work. So I think time efficiency, and when you are maybe a solopreneur and you're working from home, if the kids are back at school and you have got the ability to have some time so you can focus, then yes, there are opportunities, because we haven't got to go off and do so many other things. But I probably need some help with others, because I do struggle with more so the challenges for lots of women.
Yeah. Maria, what do you think?
I think it's made it a more level playing field. I'm speaking from a speaker's point of view, because obviously that's my area. That's and many times, if you're invited to do something as a woman, you have got other responsibilities, other things going on. And I'm not saying that you still haven't got those, but in many ways it's a lot easier. So I know of speakers who are now guesting on morning television because they can do it while the kids are still in bed, which they wouldn't have been able to do. They wouldn't have been able to leave the house, go and do it and come back. It would have been absolutely possible, and because everybody's being interviewed virtually. We have a show at 5 o'clock on LinkedIn Live, where the guest is a lady, and she took 3 months out at the beginning of lockdown and said, right, I'm going to upskill, I'm going to learn all the tech. And what has that resulted in? She's one of the few speakers who has really raised the game, and she's fully booked. She's getting lots and lots of work. She'll be sharing what she's done and what she's learned. I learned stuff from her when we were having the discussion yesterday, when we were saying, what are we going to talk about? So the opportunities are fantastic. And also the world is flat now. The flat earthers are right. So if you want to go and speak in America and break into a new market, you can. You don't have to worry about, I've got to go and travel there and be there for months. You can do it. It's all you need to do is get some help from Alison, get her to teach you how to sell, and you can now sell yourself all over the world, which is wonderful. So there are some great opportunities in that respect. And I personally am quite enjoying this virtual world. I love being at home. We did have a head start, though, because we've been virtual as a business for over 20 years. So we had a huge advantage in that. Over the competition. I know you don't want to use the word competition, but we have had an advantage in that we haven't been nearly as disrupted as many other organizations have been. So I do see some opportunities, and I don't see this virtual world going away. I don't think it's either or. I think a lot of organizations have realized there's a huge benefit to being virtual. Our people who hadn't always got together from around the world on a regular basis can. It's a lot cheaper to do. You can do things much more quickly. The lead times for us I've cut right down. People aren't planning 6 months a year. Literally, they're planning, let's do it next week. Let's do it in a couple of weeks, and doing much more. And those who are embracing it are doing a lot more. Plus, you can now, as an organization, if you want to get access to somebody who perhaps you could never have done before, you can online. People are much more accessible, much more bookable, and much cheaper, because they would charge you their local rate and not the rate it would take. So we've had some people book some incredible people that they thought they never would be able to. And that is a great benefit too, to have access to that expertise. And yesterday I spoke to somebody who I've admired for a very long time. I recommended his book to you. I got to have a chat with him, which I never have done that before, because he would have been far too busy.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree with you on that. I do manage to talk to lots of people that I wouldn't have done before. And funnily enough, the people I've met at speaking gigs now, it's even easier to build up relationships with them, because they're not flying all over the world, so I know where they are. They're in one place. What do you think, Lynn, in terms of opportunities, good or bad?
I think there are lots of opportunities, and in a way I think it was naturally going in this direction anyway, as technology was improving, and with social media and all sorts of chances that we definitely didn't have. Equally, as I think it was Jill pointed out, when you've got small children at home, I mean, one of the people I've been working with has got a 10-year-old, so half term she was literally unable to work. Somebody I work with freelance, so it's kind of got its ups and downs. But I think the aspect of accessibility and global accessibility is huge, and it's opened up enormous opportunities for women and for men, really. But I think women are naturally different communicators, and so it's very easy for us to sort of reach out. I think maybe for men, not quite so simple. One of the downsides is that we're sitting on screens too much. We've all been on screen most of today, and it does take energy out of you, and it isn't healthy. And it's so important that we actually do divide up our days with some form of getting out in the fresh air. We don't have to go out when it's dark. I've been for 2 walks today in between and been here. And I think it's absolutely essential that we really look after our well-being and our health far more. Have some quiet, get off, have some quiet time, 10 minutes meditation, and whatever it may be. Eat healthily. Don't sit with a cup of coffee on the go all day. It's just a matter of really looking after ourselves as well as using the tools that we have in an efficient way.
Yeah, I'll put that other cup of tea back there.
You can have the tea. You worked hard today. You're allowed.
I've just put my coffee away. Very wise, Lynn. Very wise.
3, like you do. Number 3 is very good at supplying tea when everything's flagging. Sunny, darling, what about you?
I'm with Jill. I see the pros and cons for it. You know, I've had friends, Jill, who their husband earns more money than them, so it's been a natural thing for them actually to step away from their business and look after the children and do the homeschooling, and they've really lost a sense of identity. They have really struggled. And then I see the other side where I've got some young staff, and I'm not so sure working from home is great for their mental health. And whereas in the office, I can see if someone's feeling down, I can see their emotions. Whereas you can't do that so much with like a few check-ins and Zooms throughout the day. So there are pros, don't get me wrong, like we get much more stuff gets done quicker. But then there's a creativity side of things, whereas actually we can have a quick brainstorm in the office, which takes 2 seconds. When you set up a Zoom meeting to do that, you don't get the same responses. So there are pros, but I also see cons, and it's not something I'd want to do long term within my businesses. But I do see there's a place where we're going to have to be a bit more agile about it, and also be able to offer people to work from home. When I first said to Sophia 3 years ago, I was back in the office with her within 4 weeks, and she was by my desk. Now, if I got my head around working on Zoom, I could probably go home a bit more with her rather than bring her into the office at 4 weeks old. So there are pros, and I think there's benefits for both sides, and I think you just need to see which one works best for you as a business. But my biggest worry is mental health for people. I definitely feel like we miss people interaction. We need that interaction, don't we? We need to see people. We need to get outside, Lynn. We need to get the exercise.
Humans are a herd type creature. We need other people. We need that touch, and that, for me, it's hugs. It's always been. I'm a huggy person, and I have to go, oh no, I'm not allowed to touch, can't hug. So Alison, another word used there, agile. It took me ages to work out what agile actually meant. Alison.
I mean, I feed into all of that. And again, I think it's about being an early adopter. So the reason that we cope with this is we were doing this anyway. So and who was talking about costs and profits? Maria was talking about costs and profits. So we never took an office space because touch wood, I'm blessed with having a decent sized house. I've got a big enough kitchen table that I can fit 20 people around it. When we have a big team, like at one point we had 10 of us working from the kitchen, and Neil was at work, so it was okay. Like that's why I keep turning my camera off, because I'm in a different office, because Neil's Ergo is arriving today because of lockdown. He's got to get his Ergo in, and so I'm like now trying to move. But again, I think it's that agileness, and we did so every single time if I was out speaking at an event or if I was out training, then my team always worked from home. So my team have always worked from home since 2014, and we've always communicated like between things, or we would have done a bit of FaceTime, or like they would have worked together. The team would have worked from a co-working space, or so we've always had quite an open relationship to work, if that makes sense. But I trust them 100%, and I welcome them to screw up, because that's how they learn. So it's not been an easy journey with every member of staff working remotely, but I think now we're quite good at it because we've always done it. And it's interesting because I've been in everybody's presentation today, right? And again, like everybody's, obviously apart from Marie, who doesn't have any children, but everybody else has had pictures of their kids in the presentation. And I'm thinking, damn it, I never put my kids in my presentation. Is it because I don't love them as much? Is it? But I think for me, one of the things that and again, I think it flicks into women who have children and women who don't have children. And I think I speak at like the Women in Sales conference, and it resonates with me. This was like 4 years ago, and this woman said, one of the things that really pisses me off is these working mums. What makes them think that their time is more valuable than everybody else's? And again, I think when you are a working mum, sometimes you do think, I'm balancing all these things, but it's your choice to have children. So it shouldn't be oh dear, poor me, I've got all these things to balance. And I think that's, and it is, you know, you've got an additional thing in there. But again, working with a team who don't have children, I think that was something that really came across, is like as a woman, everybody's time is just as valuable, whether you've got children or whether you don't have children. But when I had my children, like I thought bloody easy that I just work from home, not have any childcare, and profit from the not having to do that, until I tried to work from home with two children 17 months apart. So it didn't work. But again, I think that is another thing, you know, for women, that you know, people choose to have children. So if you choose not to have children, or you can't have children, it doesn't make your time any less valuable. Yeah. That's what I think is important in teams and teamwork, is really that everybody's time is as valuable as everybody else's.
No, I agree. I mean, I'm like you, actually. My children never appear in presentation. I think they'd come around and string me up if I ever put their photos in. And I worked all the way through the children, and funnily enough, my two often will go, "Oh yes, Mum, you were never here and you were never there." But I know, like Jill, that actually for me it was about a role model. And one of my daughters has gone off and done graphic design and gone to uni, and the other one stayed at home and had children until the children were old enough and she got a part-time job. Completely opposite, but they both say that's because you allowed us to have the choice. It was never one way was any better than the other way. And I think for me, as I go through, if I taught them that, that's great, because they've now got boys and I'm trying to get them to teach the boys, which is not so easy. So we're getting towards the end of the day, and I have thoroughly enjoyed myself today. I am exhausted because, as Lynn says, funnily enough, being online, you have to be so present. It almost drains you quicker. Very quickly, before Maria runs away there, one piece of advice you would give to anybody listening today, one quick piece of advice as I go around the room, starting with Sunny.
There's actually a question you emailed over to us about failure. So my biggest piece of advice is not to think that you failed at anything, and to take everything as a learning, something you learn from and something you can actually see positives from. I don't believe in failure. I believe in what sets you apart is the people that get up and then try and do it again and try and make it different. That's what sets you apart. So please don't think you've ever failed at something. Just think about how you're going to succeed the next time round and what you're going to learn from it.
Perfect. You'll ban failure from any vocabulary in future. Alison, piece of advice.
Well, you know, it's all about sales, baby. Fortune, I mean, I do believe that fortune favours the bold. I really think that, you know, don't hold yourself back. What's the worst that's going to happen? You're going to get a no, you're going to get a rejection. Again, it feeds back into exactly what Sunny says, that, you know, that's not a failure, that's a positive, that's a chapter for your book. See what I did there?
Thank you, Alison. Maria, what piece of advice would you give us?
I think not to put a negative or a positive spin on anything that happens. There's a wonderful Chinese story, and I probably won't get it entirely right, about a farmer who's regarded as the richest person in the village because he has a farm and he has a horse. And one day the horse runs away, and the villagers say to him, "Oh, this is really sad news. This is a really bad situation." And he says, "Maybe." The horse comes back and brings some wild horses with him, and the villagers say, "Oh, how lucky you are! Your horse has brought more horses with you." And he says, "Maybe." Then one day his son is trying to break the horses and rides them, falls off and breaks his leg. "How terrible! Your son has broken his leg." "Maybe." The army comes into the village and is recruiting all of the young men who are able to fight and go to war. Many probably won't come back. It's a really bad war. It's going to be a bad war. They say, "How lucky your son has a broken leg. He's not able to go to war." "Maybe." Yes, we're in a pandemic. Yes, it's horrible. Things are being completely disrupted. It's really terrible.
I remember
Maybe,
the first time I heard that when you told it on one of your things, Maria, and I just thought that perfect. I love that. Lynn.
Yes. Well, everything everybody said, of course, I completely agree with. But for me, it's about staying true to your values. always checking in that whatever it is you're doing really does resonate for you, really is what you want to do and how you want to do it. Because I think for very many years, certainly in my experience, working for big corporates over many years and working on women's leadership, I've seen women kind of feel the only way that they will be successful is to behave like men and to follow that male path, sit around the bar at 2, 3 in the morning laughing at dirty jokes. I've heard it so many times from the big corporate because they feel that's the only way they can get on. We're coming into a new time, and then even more important for a lot of those women, they got sick because they were out of alignment with who they truly were. So whether you're a solopreneur, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you work in a large organization, whether you work in the public sector, it doesn't matter. The important thing is always stay true to your values.
Thank you. And Jill.
Well, can I just say here to all of that? And I'm last again, but my advice would be to find your tribe. And that's not a pitch. That's about, particularly if you're a solopreneur and you've got a great idea and it's your dream, and then you follow your dream. But those closest to us aren't necessarily those that support us the most. So find the people who will support you. And that will make your life so much easier, because if you've got your own cheerleaders behind you, when things get tough, as they will, then you know who to go to and they'll lift you up. And basically we can do absolutely anything. And thank you, Bev.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for being with us today on our panel. And this has gone out live. If anybody has questions, I will happily pass them on to whoever's in the panel. Please go and check out all their pages on the site, which will have their contact details and where to buy their book and how to join the Seed Club and everything else. And just thank you for joining us. So bye.
Well done, Bev.
Well done, Bev.